Hello, and welcome to the Royal Hospital, the home of the world-famous Chelsea pensioners. I'm Dan Snow, and over the next few minutes, I'll be telling you just a little about this unique institution and its remarkable 300-year history. So when was the Royal Hospital originally built? And why? The answer's here on the building itself, though it does help if you know your Latin.
In subsidium et levamen emeritorum senio belloque fractorum condidit Carolus secundus, auxit Jacobus secundus, perfecere Gulielmus et Maria, rex et regina, anno Domini 1692.
The key thing to note is that the Royal Hospital is not a hospital in the modern sense of the word, but a home, a place of hospitality. As the inscription points out, it was originally founded by King Charles II. Here he is, in the hospital's aptly named Figure Court. Charles wanted to provide a permanent home for those veterans of his expanding regular army who were no longer fit for duty. His decision was probably inspired by the example of the French king, Louis XIV, who had founded the Hôtel des Invalides in Paris as a home for his old soldiers in 1670. The hospital was founded in 1682, but it would take 10 years before it was ready to admit its first pensioners. Finding the money to pay for the project hadn't been easy. Parliament refused to supply it, and it had taken all the generosity and financial know-how of Charles's former Paymaster General, Sir Stephen Fox, to raise anything like what was needed. From 1684, additional funds were provided by deducting a day's pay from every officer and soldier in the army. As the King's Surveyor General of Works, Sir Christopher Wren was called in to design the hospital buildings. His original intention was to house all the pensioners in Figure Court, but Charles's successor, James II, had expanded the army to such an extent that more accommodation was needed. So Wren designed two more courts, Infirmary Court, now known as College Court, and Light Horse Court, which originally provided accommodation for retired cavalrymen. Further buildings, including admin blocks and an infirmary, would be added by Sir John Soane in the early 19th century. The hospital grounds and gardens now cover some 66 acres. They are, of course, well known as the site of the annual Chelsea Flower Show. But in the 18th century, part of these grounds were occupied by the fashionable Ranelagh Pleasure Gardens, which included a huge neoclassical rotunda for concerts and entertainments. The whole Royal Hospital project was nearly jeopardised by the disastrous appointment in 1685 of the Earl of Ranelagh as Army Paymaster General. Ranelagh's financial management left a great deal to be desired, and he made matters worse by siphoning off some of the funds intended for the hospital for his own benefit. It would take more than 30 years to sort out his accounts. But in 1692, the work was finally completed, and on February the 4th, the first group of pensioners moved in. By that time, despite Wren's extra buildings, the army had grown too large to enable all its old soldiers to be accommodated in Chelsea, and so a pension system was established to cater for the overflow, who became known as out-pensioners, to distinguish them from the in-pensioners, now affectionately known as the Chelsea pensioners, who live in the hospital. The two four-storied buildings on each side of Figure Court house the majority of the pensioners. Each floor originally consisted of a pair of long wards, placed back to back, with a line of wooden berths or cubicles running down the inner side. These were originally just 6 feet square. This may seem tiny and cramped to us, then again we've never experienced the rigours of 17th century army life. Indeed, Wren took special care to ensure that as much light as possible reached the wards, and even designed the stairs with the needs of the pensioners in mind, making them shallow and broad so that elderly legs would have less trouble climbing them. But the hospital was never intended to be just a home for old soldiers. It was also a powerful statement of royal taste and generosity. And the buildings here, particularly the chapel and the Great Hall, are some of the finest of their kind in Britain. Wren's splendid chapel was consecrated in 1691, and services were originally held twice daily. Nowadays, there's a regular Sunday morning service, which visitors are more than welcome to attend. It's also the venue for a range of concerts and recitals. For the first 100 years of the hospital's existence, the Great Hall served as a huge dining room, with the pensioners sitting on oak benches at a series of long tables. But towards the end of the 18th century, the pensioners took to dining in their wards, and the hall was used for recreation, army entrance examinations, and courts martial. In November 1852, the body of the Duke of Wellington lay in state here for a week before being taken for burial in St Paul's Cathedral. In 1955, the hall was restored to its original purpose, and the oak benches were later replaced by chairs, no doubt to the relief of those who had to sit on them. Today's pensioners take their meals in the hall, surrounded by boards detailing the campaigns in which they and their predecessors have fought, and with replicas of captured colours and flags hanging overhead. Impressive as the Great Hall is, the council chamber is probably the finest room in the entire hospital. It's part of the state apartments and not normally open to the public. For many years, it formed part of the governor's apartments, but it's now used by the Board of Commissioners who run the Royal Hospital and meet here under the watchful eyes of some of the key players in the hospital's early history. Wren originally built the Royal Hospital to house a little over 500 people. But because the size of individual accommodation has been increased, today's headcount is nearer 300. Any former soldier, male or, since 2009, female, can apply to join. Applicants normally have to be over 65, and certainly have to be, as the Royal Hospital's original charter puts it, unencumbered by spouse. An in-pensioner's life can be a busy one. It has always been a feature of the establishment that able-bodied pensioners would work to help run the hospital, and today many have jobs here, working, for example, as guides, gardeners, museum and chapel staff, and helping with administration. They also regularly volunteer to represent the veteran community in services of remembrance and also less formal occasions. Pensioners may come and go as they please and are permitted to wear civilian clothing when travelling. However, within the hospital and in the immediate surrounding area, they're encouraged to wear the hospital's blue undress uniform. For travel farther afield or official occasions, they wear their distinctive scarlet coats, together with tricorn hats for ceremonial events, a uniform that has changed little from that introduced at the start of the 18th century. The most important ceremonial event in the life of a pensioner is the annual Founders' Day Parade, which is held on a day near to May the 29th, the birthday of Charles II, and the date of his restoration as monarch in 1660. It's also known as Oak Apple Day, and the parading pensioners and spectators all wear sprigs of oak leaves to commemorate the fact that in 1651 Charles escaped from Cromwell's troopers by hiding in such a tree. The Royal Hospital has always been proud to have a close link with the sovereign, and since 1980, the reviewing officer at the Founders' Day Parade has always been a member of the royal family. The most significant royal event of recent years came in 2002 when Her Majesty the Queen reviewed the pensioners at Buckingham Palace and presented the Royal Hospital with the sovereign's mace to serve as a standard. Other ceremonies are less formal, notably the ceremony of Christmas cheeses. In a tradition that goes back to 1692 when a local cheesemaker gave cheese to the pensioners, cheesemakers from all over Britain donate their produce to the hospital. The Royal Hospital has faced its fair share of challenges through the ages, not least during the 2 World Wars when, like other inhabitants of London, the pensioners found themselves once again on the front line. On the 16th of April 1941, the hospital infirmary was hit by an aerial mine which destroyed its east wing. 5 staff and 8 pensioners died in the attack, and 37 others were injured. The building had to be demolished, and the site is now occupied by the National Army Museum. In 1918, part of Light Horse Court was destroyed by enemy bombing. It was reconstructed soon after, only to be destroyed again by a V-2 rocket in 1945. 20 years later, it was rebuilt for a second time, as an exact copy of the original exterior. Today's challenges are of a different kind. The Royal Hospital is rightly proud of its 300-year history, but any institution that wants to survive can't afford to stand still. Chelsea is no exception. What was considered acceptable in the 17th century isn't seen that way today. And as a result, a major refurbishment program was introduced in 2002. A new infirmary opened in 2009, and the cramped berths that have housed the pensioners for centuries have been steadily replaced by modern suites, all to ensure that the Royal Hospital Chelsea can offer high-quality residential care for retired soldiers who have loyally served their country, both now and in the future. We hope you enjoy your visit.